the purpose of government is to secure the God-given rights. We're told that in the Declaration of Independence. That tells us what the purpose of government is.
Right.
Right. And so a constitutional sheriff understands this. And the Constitution, for the Constitution to mean something, the oath needs to matter.
Doug, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
So you are running for Ada County Sheriff under the constitutional sheriff ticket. Explain this to me.
Yes, well, I was a Republican my whole life and changed to the Constitution Party in part due to a strategy. I don't want to get bumped out at the primary running as a Republican. I want a guaranteed path to the general election. I'm certainly comfortable with the Constitution Party. I mean, their platform basically is that the federal government was given 18 things to do. And,
Right.
and that's the employee handbook for the federal government. It's grown well beyond that.
Right.
Drunk on powers it was never intended to consume. Republican Party platform, certainly I still agree with that.
Right.
I want to survive and make it to the general election in November. I don't know if you know the history of my previous attempts to run for office, but there was some hijinks in the Ada County Republican Central Committee. There's since been some turnover there for the better, changing of the guard, so to speak. And so I feel as though I still have a lot of support there, but I just didn't want to risk getting bumped out at the primary. I want a guaranteed path to the general.
Yeah, and that's obviously a huge problem, right? I mean, because the primary in a lot of ways is the election for people that don't have an alternative. I know there's a hot issue right now, and I think it's District 10 or 11 with Senator Nichols and then Lori Bishop, who's running against her, both running as Republicans, right? And again, the primary is kind of the thing that they got to worry about. So talk to me about being a constitutional sheriff. I mean, again, you've answered the question very clearly. Hey, look, you still very much align with the Republican Party, but you want a path to the general election. Makes perfect sense. You have definitely in the videos I've seen that you've posted talked about being committed to the Constitution and being the sheriff for people, right? For the individual. Talk to me about this.
Well, constitutionally speaking, the only minority that exists is the individual, right? And so the purpose of government is to secure the God-given rights. We're told that in the Declaration of Independence. That tells us what the purpose of government is,
right?
Right. And so a constitutional sheriff understands this. And the Constitution, for the Constitution to mean something, the oath needs to matter. And so I have an oath-centered perspective. And to give that some context, sheriffs that think like I do are willing to stick their neck out for you. They're willing to interpose, physically stand between you, the individual, the true minority, and government overreach. In fact, sheriffs that do not put their oath in action by interposing render the Constitution toothless and government unrestrained. The Constitution is a limiting document. Like I said earlier, the Constitution Party platform basically rests on the fact that there are 18 things that were delegated for the federal government to do. Okay, and it's grown well beyond that. So during COVID, for example, in Ada County, at the Ada County Courthouse, people were denied access to the courthouse and arrested for failure to appear because they would not wear a mask. Now, I'm going to rest on the state constitution here, Article 1, Section 18 of the state constitution. I take an oath to both constitutions, right? The federal and the state. Article 1, Section 18 of the state constitution guarantees open access without delay to the courts without prejudice. Now, my oath is not to a person, it's to the Constitution, the state constitution, and the U.S. Constitution. It's not to the administrative judge of the courthouse. It's not to Governor Little. It's not to a mayor. Okay, it's to the Constitution. And so the right thing would have been for those deputies to take those people arm in arm into the courtroom. If the judge does not want to hold court because he's afraid, because people aren't wearing a mask, then that's on the judge. But to arrest them for failure to appear and then drag them through the same door they were denied entry is offensive to my oath. And so I want to build a culture in the agency that is oath-centered, to where when deputies are faced with that decision, if they have any doubt at all, call me. But if they're trained up on what their oath means, what their oath looks like in action, then there's some very black and white circumstances on how to behave. And that was one of them that was missed. And people were injured during that and then dragged through the same door without a mask that they were denied entry. They were there at their appointed date, time, and location for the court event. And then to be arrested for failure to appear is absurd. And so that's just one example of an oath in action. Another hypothetical, let's say ATF wants to come into Ada County and take your ARs. Okay, Article 1, Section 11 of the state constitution forbids gun confiscation registration. So again, there's certain black and white areas here. Churches closed. There's no reason that a minister in Idaho should have been arrested, or a woman having a garage sale, or a mother at a park with her children. There's no reason that these arrests should have happened. The Bill of Rights are the untouchables. And it's the duty of a sheriff who is the people's guardian. The sheriff is a very unique office. He's the only elected law enforcement officer in the country. And so he is the people's guardian. And those are just some examples where, to give some context to the distinction between a sheriff and a constitutional sheriff. Constitutional sheriff understands his oath is not to a person.
Right.
There's a lot of overreach during COVID, and the people's rights were stepped on. And so that's how I'm wired differently.